All right, we are joined here by Governor Henry McMaster for a few questions. Governor, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Glad to be here.
Well, let's start with, I saw a recent Winthrop poll that said the issue South Carolinians care the most about in-state is education. Would you say that's a fair estimate?
I would say that is something that everybody cares about. The different polls at different times come up with different answers, but education is the key to success. Now, it doesn't have to be 4 years, it doesn't have to be postgraduate, but it needs to be high school. And what we're finding out more and more, that the technical college system is the perfect place for a lot of our workforce to go today. What I'm trying to do as governor, and have asked for some fuel to cause this to happen, is to join our high schools with the technical colleges and then with the 4-year colleges where appropriate, because there are all these jobs out here and these big plants that are coming, these big manufacturers, and they're coming from all over the world to South Carolina. They can't find enough people to do those jobs. Right now we are 60,000 jobs, 60,000 people short on good paying jobs in the trades, as HVAC, carpentry, plumbing, as well as technicians of all kinds, from airplanes, these big machines. We are 60 people short, but 60,000 short. But the good news is we're ahead of the rest of the country, because we have a technical college system that we created back in the 60s that has grown, has expanded, and Dr. Miller and the technical college here is really off the scale. We have a number of them that are just leading the way in the country. Commerce Secretary, U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross has said that we have the best job training and development program of anybody in the country here in South Carolina. But we have to supercharge that, because we have so much industry coming in, so much growing, so many businesses growing. We need to get more and more people going into that area of work.
Well, let me ask you about areas of work. When we talk about public schools, you got to have teachers.
That's right.
We have a critical shortage of teachers in this state.
We got a critical shortage of teachers, nurses, law enforcement,
yes,
prison. We have all sorts of critical shortages.
I mean, these are the essential functions of government,
That's
right? Law enforcement and teaching kids and running prisons. We have a dangerous shortage of corrections officers.
That's right.
We have shortages at every law enforcement agency in the state.
That's right.
And teachers, kids don't go to college to become teachers, and they don't stay in the job when they get there. In your executive budget this year, you didn't include a raise for those teachers. Why not?
Because you can't raise everybody. We have, of our critical needs in the state, and there are plenty of them. Now, we do waste some money. We got to cut that out. But of our critical needs, there's never enough to go around to do all that we want to do. So you have to prioritize. We have essentially a 6-foot bed of needs with about a 4-foot blanket. But the way to get more money to go into these needs is not by starving this critical need in order to help that critical need, but to grow this economy without growing the excesses of government. And the way to grow the economy is by having businesses that are here expand, get the taxes off of them. I want to eliminate the income, cut 15% off the income tax, cut all the income tax on retirement pay for law enforcement officers, for retired military, for first responders, and for peace officers. No income tax on their retirement pay from the government. We have to keep these core functions as strong as we can. We can do that. That's not taking any money away from somebody else. That's giving those people an incentive to come take those jobs and an incentive to stay in those jobs. But if we grow this economy, if we limit the taxes, I've issued executive order to get rid of these regulations that are strangling us. If we can do that and have an even more accelerated business growth in South Carolina, we can have more money to do the things that we need to do without raising taxes. I'm for lowering taxes. The states around the country that are raising the taxes on the people are losing people, they're losing jobs, and a lot of those people are coming to South Carolina.
Well, let's say we concede the point that cutting taxes and regulations will provide growth,
right,
and then over time we'll have more revenue. How long do teachers have to wait to get some of that?
Well, they've been waiting a long time. Fortunately, we have a lot of dedicated people who want to go into teaching and into nursing and into law enforcement. We have to meet the demand, we have to meet the market, and we have to do better than we're doing. But again, the way to do it is not to rob Peter to pay Paul. The way to do it is to have that expanded economic growth. And anytime a tax comes along that's going to impede that, I'll cut it. Anytime a regulation comes along, and that's why I vetoed taxes. I vetoed that gas tax. You know why? because almost half of the money that was taken up in that gas tax was not being spent on the roads. People didn't know that. I found that out. Not being spent on the roads, and some that was being spent on the roads was being spent on the wrong roads that are not priorities. Now, as governor, as of 2017, I have the authority that no other governors had before, and that is to appoint and remove highway commissioners if they are not doing the right thing and establishing with the transportation department engineering decisions of priorities of the roads that we have to fix. That is one thing that I can do, I'm determined to do as governor, to see to it that this money that's going in on that gas tax is going to the roads and bridges and fixing our infrastructure.
I mean, you've been around South Carolina politics a long time. Some of these issues are not at all new. This issue of not having enough corrections officers has been going on for years and years and years. How soon can we expect to see an influx of corrections officers to keep those prisons safe?
Well, I issued an executive order. I have some powers as chief executive to issue orders to do things, and I issued one. Issued one months ago, declaring an emergency in our prison system because of the presence of these cell phones. I mean, that's what is the main responsible thing, the main new element in that riot that happened at the Lee prison just a couple of weeks ago. Everybody in there's got cell phones. They're illegal, but we can't jam them. But there are things that we can do like that to reduce the violence. We have gangs in the prisons now. This is something new with the advent of these cell phones. That doesn't cost any money. But again, and I have, with an executive order, have allowed raises, allowed overtime work, allowed a lot of flexibility among our prisons to try to address this problem right now. That's already gone into effect. But in the long run, and you always have to think about the long run, a short-term measure here, a short-term measure there, that's not how you stay on a steady course. What we have to do is have accelerated economic growth that is demonstrated no place better than Greenville. This city, look at this city. As I was walking in here, I had not been out there right in front of your building to look over into the river in some time. I walked across the bridge, but I remember when the Poinsett Hotel was condemned. I remember all those things. This place is just beautiful, and people all over the world are telling me about Greenville. They talk about Charleston, they talk about Spartanburg, they talk about Columbia. We've really got a lot going on, but this place, the growth and the excitement that is present in this place as well as others is the way to get us to the top and have money for those things.
I moderated a forum with the Better Business Bureau last week. There's all these employers from the upstate talking about that growth that you're describing.
Right.
And all of them said, I cannot hire anyone right now. I am starving to hire people. You mentioned this in a lot of churches. Truck drivers, CDL truck drivers is a crisis.
And they can pay $100,000 a year, and they don't even load the truck.
So where do these people come from?
They train them in the technical schools. We have to get them into the technical schools, but we have a cultural barrier. For so many years, everybody has been taught and understood you have to go to a 4-year college and get that degree. Well, a lot of people don't want to go 4 years. A lot of people don't have the money. A lot of people would rather work with their hands and their brains, and that would, with the advent of this manufacturing miracle that is taking place in our state, we are off the scale compared to other states. We have the opportunity to enter into a new kind of prosperity based on this kind of manufacturing and these high-tech things, brain power. Not only can we be ahead of the other states around us, but we can be ahead of Japan and China and these other places that are putting all their money into technology. And that's what we have to do. That's how you do it.
A couple other topics I want to get to. That same poll that said education was the top issue in state said immigration was the biggest issue nationally. Same group of respondents. Mm-hmm. You've done a couple of interesting things on immigration. Number one, you talked about sending South Carolinians to Texas.
National Guard, that's right.
And number two, you've talked about sanctuary cities legislation. Right. Both of those, tell me why those are critically important to people who live here. We don't have sanctuary cities, and we don't have a border with Mexico.
No, we don't, but we have the consequences of sanctuary cities and the consequences of a porous border in Mexico. I talked to Greg Abbott and Doug Ducey, and they need help. Their National Guard is not able to do it in Arizona and Texas. I've known Greg Abbott for years. We were attorneys general together. They're smart, they're dedicated, but they don't have the resources. So I offered both of them, talking to the Adjutant General, a very fine Adjutant General. Our National Guard in South Carolina is always #1 in readiness in the United States. It's really a remarkable accomplishment. So I offered them to make our troops available to them if they needed them. They said, we do. We'd like to rotate some of theirs out and put ours in, and we're going to help them. Also, I've gotten the State Guard, which is different from the National Guard, but it's the old militia, started with Francis Marion. I've issued an executive order to where the State Guard can patrol our prisons. Why is that? Because you have these criminals that are coming up to the prison wire, to the fence with the razor wire, and throwing a cell phone over for somebody to get on the inside to conduct a criminal enterprise. And we don't have enough money for all the kind of detection devices or enough people. So we got the State Guard doing that. I'm sending those people, I'm making them available to the Texans and the Arizonans, because that's where a lot of this illegal trade is coming through. And as we had a conference here this morning in Greenville with Steve King from Iowa, who's a leading on the immigration in sanctuary cities, and all kind of drugs. A lot of the opioids, heroin, all that is just pouring over the border and is coming into the cities and coming into sanctuary cities. Been so declared by the leaders, mayors, even the governor of California is now declaring California to be a sanctuary.
Nowhere in South Carolina. No one's done that.
Not that we no, and we're not going to do it. But as the man said in Mr. King from Iowa, he said 10 years ago nobody would have thought they would ever have a sanctuary city in Iowa. Now they have 10 to 12 of them. So the way to stop it is to stop it before it happens. And what I have done is put teeth in the law to see to it that we do not have any sanctuary cities in South Carolina. I'm the only candidate in this race who's had any experience in law enforcement. 4 years appointed under President Reagan as U.S. Attorney for South Carolina, worked with all the federal agencies, and 8 years as Attorney General. I know this will work, just like I know that having a peace officer that is a certified, trained, certified police officer, nothing short of that, but a deputy, a fully deputized person, to be in each of our schools. From any time students are there, every school in every district in every county in South Carolina, I know that will preclude much, much misery. I asked the legislature for it in January, and nobody was interested. We've had some tragedies. Now more and more people are interested, and that's getting ready to pass. The sanctuary city bill that I asked for is getting ready to pass. There are a number of things that we need to do, and those are just two of them.
Good. I got 3 other topics to get to real fast. So to be governor is expensive. Your campaign has raised $4,081,881.21.
If you got any extra change on it, send it on in.
Well, let me ask you about that. How often do you have to ask people for money?
Have I asked you for any yet?
No, sir.
You're the only one I haven't asked for money. Yes, you have to spend a lot of time doing it, but fortunately people are generous. People, they don't want to run themselves, but they understand the need for good government. They're looking for people with experience, with understanding, and they believe leadership qualities, and that's what we need. So I'm delighted to have that support.
So, I mean, in a typical governor's day, how much time do you spend having to ask people for money?
Well, none today. I mean, there are many days there's no time for that, but you have to squeeze it in where you can.
Okay.
And you have people that are helping you. They'll have a drop in. You stop by, and then you go back to the office.
State House was talking about abortion all night last night.
That's right.
Not much happened as a result of that late night thing.
Bill went back to the committee.
So abortion is apparently an issue in a gubernatorial campaign.
That's right.
Why is it? I mean, this is a federal issue, is it not?
No, it's an issue of life. And life is everywhere. It's right here. I mean, the idea of taking a child's life, an unborn child's life, is a very serious subject, whether you approach it from a religious viewpoint or any other. And I mean, I believe that it is not right to take the life of an unborn child. And I wish they had fought harder last night to get that bill through. There'll be another day, but any bill, any rule that comes to me that reduces abortions in South Carolina in any way, I will support. And I issued another executive order telling my government that we are not spending a penny of taxpayer money to Planned Parenthood. Not going to do it. They are one of the major proponents of abortions in this country. We're not going to give them any taxpayer money. If you want to send them some of your own money privately, that's your business. But we're not giving them the taxpayers' money.
Last thing, I've spent a lot of time with different veterans groups around the state lately, some of them with real serious issues with PTSD. Would you as governor support medical marijuana if it proves effective to treat that in our veterans?
If the law enforcement tells me that it is advisable to do that, then I would be interested in that. I'm very interested in the issue, whether it's a veteran, whether it's children, and presiding over the Senate for 2 years, I've heard debates and arguments. I've read about it, but my opinion right now is that would open the door to something that we do not want to have in South Carolina. But our veterans, and that's another story. We owe those people, and our VA system is in a mess. I'm so happy Donald Trump wants to privatize that. Donald Trump, I supported him, I endorsed him. He has endorsed me in this race. He's campaigned for me in this race. We hope to have Vice President Pence here, and I'm counting on them at the national level to lead the effort to help our veterans. Our veterans sometimes travel 50 or 100 miles to go to the doctor. That doesn't make any sense. They ought to be able to have some sort of credit card to go to the nearest facility. We need to modernize that. But as far as supporting veterans, one of the things that I've asked for from the legislature is to cut everyone's income tax about 15%. But for veterans, for retired law enforcement officers, for first responders, and for peace officers, those in the prisons, no income tax at all, zero on your pension that you get from the state or federal government or county. That way we can, without spending money, that's one way that we can stretch that 4-foot blanket on that 6-foot bed. We can provide incentives for those people, those are good people, for them to come into the service and to stay in the service. It'll help recruitment and retention.
All right, Governor, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you very much.